Hello people, what is going on? Welcome back to the channel. This is Sorin and today we're gonna take a look at the BZ-72-1. This is gonna be a tier 10 Chinese heavy tank, a breakthrough heavy tank with rocket boosters that probably this year is gonna make it in the game. If not, probably next year as a Clan Wars reward. And why I say as a Clan Wars reward? Well, if you take a look at this video over here, we can see that by the looks of it under the tarp, you have kind of a long gun and you actually have a cupola over here on the right, I guess. But if you look at the game, you do not really see a cupola over here. It's mostly like a machine gun on the left, but nowhere on the right. And as long as this antenna doesn't really count as a cupola, well, I guess this is not gonna be the tank for this year's Clan Wars. But other than that, guys, I will just review the tank as it is right now. Keep in mind that everything can be subject to change. This vehicle probably will not be added. Probably it will be added in the game. So take this video only as for informative and just for entertainment. So without further ado, let's begin the video. Starting off, I want to compare this vehicle to the BZ-75 because obviously both vehicles are Chinese heavy tanks and they use the rocket booster mechanic. As you can see, the vehicle features 2336 DPM, which is pretty much part on part with the 152mm Tech 3 tank. I guess it's kind of average, but the tank actually has 560 alpha damage, which basically means your reload time, you're gonna shoot more shells, yet at the cost of only 90 less damage, because you obviously have a 560 instead of a 650. But the main problem of this vehicle is gonna be the caliber, 130mm compared to a 152. I will 7 times out of 10, I'll pick actually the 152 because you can actually overmatch a lot of roofs or foreheads of the vehicles. With 152, you can penetrate 50-meter sides and so on and so forth. Actually, not penetrate overmatch. But other than that, the gun seems kind of fair. You actually have the same amount of penetration. You have pretty much the same DPM. Obviously, 560 alpha damage, that's actually fairly good because you can still trade with 440 alpha damage, with 490, with 510, 530, 410, and so on and so forth. Which obviously, if you're playing for trade, you will not really feel that DPM that bad. In terms of the armor layout, you actually have 1000 shell velocity on your AP and 320 meters of hit round, actually 320 meters of penetration on your hit rounds with 950 shell velocity, which I guess they are the same as the BZ-75, which, yeah, they do have 319 and 950 shell velocity on their hit rounds. So if you're gonna spam the full hit, you pretty much have the same shell velocity and the same penetration as the BZ-75. Next, as you can see, the vehicle doesn't have the best AP shell velocity as the 152 has 15% better shell velocity, which is a bit sad. But what is not sad is actually the ammo capacity of this vehicle, because it can carry 40 rounds. With a damage potential of over 20,000, you can carry AP, hit, and HE shells. Depending on the situation, you can have, 5 HE shells, like 20 AP and 15 hit, if my math is correct at this hour. But yeah, other than that, you can carry a lot of rounds. Next, is the gun handling better than a 152? Obviously, because it's a smaller caliber gun. The aiming time is tiny touch better, and the accuracy is tiny touch better. You have the same dispersion as the BZ-75, and the same, obviously, dispersion while moving, while traversing. But whenever you turn the turret, you actually have way better, actually by 50%, which is a big thing. Whenever it's stationary and you turn the turret, the vehicle is not gonna bloom as much as you'll do with the BZ-75. Next, you also have the same elevation and the same gun depression, which make those two vehicles fairly similar in terms of this. In terms of mobility, it is the same 30 km/h top speed, where you can actually on soft, you can actually go 30 km/h, which is fairly decent because you actually get 1.82 terrain resistance, which means you'll always be able to reach your top speed, whereas the BZ-75 is gonna reach only 18 km an hour while driving on soft. But the vehicle actually has a stronger engine and weighs less, which gives this vehicle a power to weight ratio of over 16.5, which is just much better. It's actually 30% better than it is on the BZ-75. So yeah, this vehicle is gonna be much more mobile than its Tech 3 counterpart. But the question is at what cost? Well, by the looks of it, in terms of the flat armor, you're you're kind of losing over here because you're trading some side armor, some hull armor, but your turret armor is gonna be sturdy and actually very sturdy. You on top of that lose 300 hit points, which is a lot of hit points. You actually need to use the hardening, I guess, to compensate for the big loss that you get compared to the Tech 3 variant, which is once again a bit sad, but luckily your Armour has 30% more health, so you're not gonna get Armour as often. On top of that, what do you have? You actually have 400 meters view range, which is 10 meters better than the Tech 3. And on top of that, you also have 10% fire chance, but keep in mind, whenever you shoot at the rockets of this vehicle, it is gonna get set on fire mostly of the time. So if you have people that know how to flank you and know how to shoot down at your rockets, yeah, this vehicle is gonna be set on fire. As I love to see BZ-75 in onslaught, I love to flank them, shoot them right into their into this zone of the tank, and they're always set on fire. I guess the same story is gonna happen with the BZ-72. So whenever you're gonna shoot here towards the rockets, the tank is gonna get set on fire. So yeah, you have to be really careful. Now, talking about the vehicle itself, let's actually max it out and see what we have to offer. Well, because the vehicle has such good terrain resistance, you can actually give it some more, you know? On top of that, you could probably want to lower your accuracy. You pretty much want the 3% more view range. Kind of want to put the firepower, just because the vehicle doesn't lack its terrain resistances. You probably could use a turbocharger just to have better top speed. Why is it 30 and not 35? I remember it being, was it 35 all the time? No, it's actually 30. Sorry, my bad. I thought it's 35, but yeah, you will actually need to use the turbocharger. So going back to whatever the setup was like this, going actually for a mobility slot, and you're on top of that. Oh, you actually get 4 km an hour with this, and you kind of want to put yourself like, I guess, more hit points, like 2% hit points, I guess, for the trade of dispersion. So you could possibly use hardening, a turbocharger, and either a rammer, or you can drop the hardening for a vertical stabilizer, because this vehicle will fairly need vertical stabilizer. But obviously, if you're happy with 34 km an hour, you can just obviously actually take this down and put it here. So yeah, this is gonna look much better, because obviously you can go 34 with this. So the power supply rewiring is gonna help you as much as the turbo does, because obviously, as I mentioned, you can still go 34 km an hour even on soft. So whenever you're driving through the swamp, you're still gonna reach your top speed, because your terrain resistance are so great that you don't need to use grousers or a turbocharger to increase your power to weight ratio or anything like that to help you move on the swampy lands, which basically frees up a slot. But once again, if you wanna go 5 km or 6 km an hour faster, then obviously the turbocharger will do. And as I mentioned, you can either drop down the rammer or the hardening for the turbo, so it is clearly depending on your playstyle. Next, let's actually put some skills on it. like smooth ride, situation awareness, snapshot, and yeah, whenever you kind of pump it up a little, you can actually the tank doesn't really look that bad on a paper. But yeah, you start to get to decent DPM status, like 2700. It's fairly good. 12-second reload, which means you can like, as I mentioned, you can trade with vehicles that are having lower hit points. Actually, lower hit points, lower alpha damage. And other than that, the vehicle doesn't look that bad. You can actually get up to 464, which is fairly good, and you get 2550 hit points, which is fine, I guess, for smaller heavy tank, I guess. I mean, it's not full-blooded super heavy. It's more of a medium-ish heavy tank. Yet your top speed is kind of low. I mean, you're as low as an E100 if you ask me. Obviously, for the top speed, not about the engine power or the mobility. But yeah, sad that they give it only 30 and not something like 35. But obviously, whenever you are using, I forget to mention about the rocket boosters. Whenever you use the rockets, you obviously have 5 of them, which is really nice. And the duration for them pretty much lasts around 10 seconds. And whenever they're active, you get, I think, 250%. So basically, you get 50% better top speed, which is 45 whenever you actually. I'll have to double check in again to make sure I am correct and not saying something wrong, because obviously the comment sections are going to be blowing up. So whenever you use the booster, you have 2250, which I guess is 250%. So you get 1.5 times more engine power. And yeah, your power to weight ratio goes up to 40, almost 42, which looks very nice. But whenever you go forward, you go, by the looks of it, by 50%, and your reverse speed drops down to 2. But it's fine whenever you cross the water, because even if you are under the water, your rockets will still propel you. So whenever you cross a deep river, or you try to get out of a river that you fell into, the rockets are gonna be doing just fine. So yeah, if you're gonna put the 34, this will mean you get 50% extra, which is 17. So basically, you're gonna be able to go up to 51, I guess, whenever you're using the boosters. But if you can go to 39 or even 40 with turbocharger, you will be able to go up to, how much is it? 60? Probably, yeah. I think I can go up to 60, which is really respectable. I mean, just imagine going 60 with these vehicles. So, yeah, the turbocharger boost does stack up whenever you're using this. So, for 5 times, you can go, obviously, for 50 seconds, you can go at 60 kilometers an hour, which is gonna be fairly good whenever you spawn and you try to engage in position. Obviously, those 20-30 seconds at the end, at the beginning of the match, are going to be really mandatory to, to secure that good position. And other than that, now they got everything sorted. Let's actually take a look at the armor layout. So as you can see, the vehicle gets 8 degrees of command depression, which is fairly flexible, but only 3 on the back. So keep that in mind whenever you get flanked. Well, the armor looks a bit angly. You have 120 by the looks of it on those plates over here. And actually, unlike some other vehicles that their turret is overlapping with this, you actually get kind of a really nice edge over here. Because if you remember the Panzer Kraftwagen 7, the tier 10 super heavy German with back turreted tank, you actually have a big weak point here, but with this tank is actually not gonna be really the case. So you can bait people into shooting. That's versus IP versus hit. I mean, even with versus hit, it is still really angled. But yeah, I actually really like the armor layout of this vehicle. In terms of the upper plate, it's kind of battery, so you don't really want to fight inside the city, or maybe you can just, wiggle and try to bait people into shooting your side. What about your armor. You have 70, which basically means you'll never get overmatched. So you can, I mean, obviously, you're gonna get weak points, but people that are not gonna know where to shoot, they are still gonna go for this, and I mean, they can still get a chance. But whenever you over angle, yeah, the vehicle it's actually very long as well, so it's gonna be kind of hard to check around the corner, I guess. But whenever you're using your gun depression, you're kind of uh, getting a really nice angle. And versus hit, yeah, your upper plate is still red, but yeah, as you can see, you have two big weak points, which seem fairly balanced. I mean, the turret looks like a Object 140 turret, if you ask me, but yeah, the cupolas are fairly big compared to the Object 70, actually Object 452K, which I reviewed earlier. Yeah, this vehicle actually has big weak points. On top of that, look at this lower plate. It's only 90 millimeters, on some places 110, which means HE shells from tank destroyers, which have around 90 millimeters, if they're all high, they can actually do 1100 damage to your tank frontally. So you really don't need to fight on flat ground with this. And on top of that, if you're whenever you're fighting hull down and you're above your enemies, make sure that you wiggle and try to obviously to go back and forth like this, to obviously the people are still gonna be able to shoot those things reliable, but try to wiggle as much and try to peek whenever it's safe. And one thing I need to mention is around this unicorn over here. It's 45 millimeters, which means the BZ-75 with AP is gonna be able to overmatch with AP. Obviously, if he's gonna hit, because the thing doesn't have the best accuracy, but he's gonna aim here. Probably the shell is gonna be like that or like that. So four big weak points on these vehicles, hull and obviously front, which is a bit sad considering it doesn't have the most DPM, obviously the most mobility on paper or anything like that. But it seems like it's a fairly balanced tank, and I like whenever they're adding balanced tanks. But the selling point of this, if it's gonna be probably auctions or whatever it is gonna be added as, if it's not overpowered, then people are gonna buy it. The same as it was with the T54, I guess. It was a tier 9, it was average, and people were like, yeah, we're not gonna buy it because it's not special or it's not overpowered. So, yeah. Let me know what do you think about this. Let's actually jump into the game. Let's see about their armor model, if it's to see if it is the same. We're gonna use in-game calculator. And yes, you can see from flat ground it's 140, which means people are gonna penetrate you like tier 8s, light tanks as well. Cupolas are 150, which are fine. The turret is really strong at 350. So if they're gonna they'll be missing those. I mean, this one is more visible. This one is a bit hidden. The turret is gonna be pretty much impenetrable. Let's actually try 350 hit. Let's actually calculate. So yeah, with 350 hit, your turret checks are nowhere to be penetratable, but obviously the hull, the upper plate, and the cupolas are fairly big of a weak point. But obviously, if you play at not even backline, I mean, you don't have the most accurate gun to snipe. So yeah, this vehicle is gonna be for the good players to play. Mostly of the average and good players, I guess they're gonna struggle with this just because the vehicle has weak points. But I can tell you one thing: I have my whatever it is, I have my T110 in 5. This thing actually has a bigger cupola, yet I enjoy it, and people are still bouncing whenever they try to hit this. So if you know how to play with tanks that have cupola, and you can make them work. Yeah, the BZ-71, actually 72-1, is gonna be a fairly good vehicle for you. Um, but yeah, I think this was everything that I had to say. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you legends around.